Brisbane, perched on the winding Brisbane River in subtropical Queensland, transformed from one of Australia's harshest penal settlements into a thriving colonial capital. Its dramatic evolution from a place of punishment to prosperity tells a story unique in Australian history. Today, advanced AI technology allows us to bring these lost streets back to life. Join me as we step into the Brisbane our ancestors once knew. In 1823, Governor Thomas Brisbane instructed Surveyor General John Oxley to explore Moreton Bay for a site suitable for a new penal settlement. Word had spread that transportation to New South Wales was no longer feared, and the British government wanted to restore terror to punishment. Moreton Bay's remoteness from Sydney made it ideal for exiling the worst convicts. On November 29, 1823, Oxley encountered 3 shipwrecked timber getters on Bribby Island. Thomas Pamphlet and John Finnegan told him of a great river they'd discovered. With Finnegan as guide, Oxley found the river mouth and named it after Governor Brisbane. On September 12, 1824, the brig Amity arrived at Redcliffe with Lieutenant Henry Miller, the first commandant, about 30 convicts and soldiers. The settlement was immediately problematic. Mosquitoes plagued the camp, fresh water was scarce, and the site proved indefensible. In May 1825, Miller moved the entire settlement to the north bank of the Brisbane River at the current site of Brisbane's CBD. The new location offered fresh water, easier defence, and made escape virtually impossible. Life at Moreton Bay was deliberately brutal. This was secondary punishment for convicts who had re-offended after transportation. Between February and October 1828 alone, over 11,000 lashes were inflicted on 200 convicts. Commandant Patrick Logan, who took charge in 1826, ruled with infamous cruelty. The convict ballad Moreton Bay lamented his regime. For 3 long years I was beastly treated, and heavy irons on my legs I wore. Logan was killed by Aboriginal people in 1830 while exploring. At its peak in 1830, the settlement held 952 prisoners. The Turrbal and Yugera peoples had inhabited these lands for thousands of years before European arrival. The settlement disrupted their food sources and sacred sites. Conflict was inevitable and frequent. Organised resistance, maize-field raids, and wider Indigenous conflicts marked the 1820s and 1830s. Disease introduced by Europeans devastated the Aboriginal population, though exact numbers remain unknown. Transportation to Moreton Bay ceased in 1839, and the penal settlement officially closed on February 10, 1842. Governor Gipps declared the district open for free settlement. Only 2 convict-built structures survive today. The Old Windmill, Brisbane's oldest building constructed in 1828, and the Commissariat store completed in 1829. By 1846, the Moreton Bay area had a recorded population of 4,000 Aboriginal people and 2,257 European migrants. Free settlers arrived, slowly at first. The Fortitude brought 250 migrants in 1849, establishing what would become Fortitude Valley. German Lutheran missionaries had already established Zion Hill Mission at Nunda in 1838. Pastoral districts expanded along the river valleys. Wool became the economic driver. In 1850, the Bank of New South Wales opened a branch. Farm communities developed at Bulimba, Coorparoo, Nunda and Towong. Agitation for separation from New South Wales began in the 1850s. Brisbane residents resented decisions made in distant Sydney. The city's importance as a port and urban centre was undeniable, yet infrastructure lagged. On June 6, 1859, Queen Victoria signed letters patent establishing Queensland as a separate colony. On December 10, 1859, Governor George Bowen stepped ashore at the Botanic Gardens before an estimated crowd of 4,000. Brisbane became the capital of Queensland. Civic development followed rapidly. Parliament House, designed by Charles Tiffin, was completed in 1868. The Treasury Building, designed by John James Clark, opened in 1886. The Cathedral of St Stephen was dedicated in 1874. Customs House rose in 1889 as a symbol of Brisbane's commercial importance. The the population exploded from 23,520 in 1859 to over 130,000 by 1900. Gold discoveries transformed Queensland in the 1860s and 70s. Gold was found at Gympie in 1867, saving the colony from bankruptcy. Other strikes followed at Ravenswood, Charters Towers, and Palmer River. Towns sprang up overnight as thousands of diggers converged on the goldfields. Brisbane prospered as the gateway to the diggings and the financial centre for the wealth pouring out of the ground. The 1880s brought industrial development. Prior to this decade, most goods were imported rather than manufactured. Capital investment increased dramatically, and factories appeared throughout Brisbane. Clothing and boot manufacture dominated, employing 40% of the industrial workforce by 1890. Factories grew without planning, in sheds and behind shops, often lacking proper sanitation. Working conditions were appalling, with women and young boys paid minimal wages to work long hours. Roma Street Station opened in 1876, connecting Brisbane to Ipswich. By 1890, most of the city rail network was complete. Horse-drawn trams began operating in 1885, replaced by electric trams in 1897. These transport networks enabled suburban expansion. Areas like Bulimba, Korperu and Sherwood, used for agriculture since the 1850s, began developing as residential suburbs. The 1893 flood devastated Brisbane. Water rose over 30 feet, destroying buildings and infrastructure. The city rebuilt, but floods in 1896 and 1898 struck again, hampering development. A royal commission in 1894 investigated working conditions in factories and found widespread exploitation. The Factories and Shops Act of 1896 mandated safer workplaces and tighter controls on employing young people, though wages and the 8-hour day wouldn't improve until 1915. Brisbane's subtropical location made it a trade hub for the Pacific. From the 1860s, the city became a major transit point for South Sea Islander labourers, transported under indenture to Queensland's sugar plantations. Though administered as an indenture system, many historians regard it as a form of slavery. Chinese labourers arrived in 1848, establishing a concentrated community at Frogs Hollow. German, Scottish and Irish immigrants created a diverse population unusual for colonial Australia. By 1900, Brisbane's population reached 130,000. The city had shed its convict origins and emerged as a confident colonial capital. Grand public buildings lined the streets. Electric trams clanged through downtown. The port bustled with ships loading wool, sugar and minerals. That year brought both progress and crisis. Brisbane was officially designated city status, yet bubonic plague struck, forcing quarantines and fumigation. Brisbane had transformed from a place where men were flogged at triangles and lived in chains to a thriving city, ready to enter the 20th century. The harsh penal settlement was now a distant memory, its brutal legacy preserved only in stone buildings and folk songs. Queensland's capital had become a fully realised metropolis, gateway to the tropical north and symbol of colonial ambition.